Officer Christopher. Can you stay over here, ma'am? This is a traffic. This is a legal traffic stop. Do you have your ID?
No, it's in my purse. Here.
You have your purse right there.
No, this is my lunch. Would you talk to Dennis? This is ridiculous. Just go away.
Hello, sir. Ma'am, come outside. You can't just go inside. This is a traffic stop. Here's your phone back.
I understand the law better than you.
You say you're a DA?
I am the DA.
Okay.
Okay, let me get you my badge. I am the DA of Monroe.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Southern Draw Law. My name is James White, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, former police officer. Well, America's least favorite prosecutor has issued a public apology and wants people to forgive her for the fact that she got caught being corrupt in such a public and embarrassing way. Now, if you've been living under a rock for the past week or you haven't heard about it, the basics of the case are these. The elected district attorney for Monroe County, New York, Sandra Doorley, was stopped by a Webster, New York police officer after he clocked her doing 55 in a 35-mile-per-hour zone about half a mile from her house. Instead of stopping, she continued on to her house, and then she attempted to shoo him away because that's what works for all of us whenever we need the cops to leave us alone, and she figured she'd give it a try too.
Sorry, I'm the DA. I was going 55 coming home from work.
55 and a 35.
I don't really care.
Okay.
So you can call Dennis.
Can you please come over here?
No.
This is on a traffic stop, ma'am.
Yes, it is. You can call Dennis Kohlmeyer right now.
Okay, I'm telling you why I stopped you. You didn't stop at all. Did you not hear my lights or sirens or anything?
No, I didn't actually. I was on the phone.
Okay, well, you're not supposed to be on the phone while you're driving either.
Yes, I am with the hands-free. Absolutely.
Okay. Why are you so upset at me? I'm doing my job. You just admitted to me that you were going 55 and a 35 on Phillips Road.
Can you please tell him to leave me alone? It's
Officer Christopher. Can you stay over here, ma'am? This is a traffic. This is a legal traffic stop. Do you have your ID?
No, it's in my purse. Here.
You have your purse right there.
No, this is my lunch. Would you talk to Dennis? This is ridiculous. Just go away.
Hello, sir. I stopped her for going 55 and a 35 on Phillips Road.
On Phillips Road.
And she failed to stop. She drove all the way back home and parked in her garage. And now she's not complying with any of my commands. Ma'am, do not go inside.
Oh my God.
Good. Ma'am, can you please stay at the back? This is legal traffic stop. Can you please stay over here? Ma'am, come outside. You can't just go inside. This is a traffic stop. Here's your phone back.
I understand the law better than you. Would you just
953. Can you have a supervisor come to the scene?
No. Get out of my house.
I don't know why you're acting like this towards me.
Because
Can you please go to the back of the vehicle?
I'm not going to. I'm home. Okay, 55.
I don't care if you got home. You were supposed to stop at Phillips Road when I pulled you over. When my lights were initiated.
I didn't know you were stopping me. There was lots of other people on the road.
I was right behind you.
Yeah? There were other people on the road too.
Okay, I was directly behind you.
I'm not dealing with you right now.
Can you please step over here?
I'm not going to.
What is the reason you're so against what I'm doing? I'm doing my job. You say you're a DA?
I am the DA.
Okay.
Okay, let me get you my badge. I am the DA of Monroe County.
Just don't understand the hostility towards me. I'm doing my job.
No, you're being...
How am I being an asshole?
I am the DA of Monroe County.
I understand that, but that doesn't give you a right to go 55 and a 35. And you even admitted to me that you went 50. I understand that, ma'am.
I don't really care.
understand that.
You know what? If you give me a traffic ticket, that's fine. I'm the one who prosecutes it, okay? Just go ahead and do it. Go ahead.
So you'll notice that the first thing she does is tell the officer that she's the DA and essentially tells him to go away. She eventually goes on to tell him that she's been dealing with homicides in the city and that traffic doesn't matter. And so basically she starts to lay the groundwork for the fact that she's a more important person than him and that her job is more important and she deals with much bigger issues than speeding and he's a nobody and he should go away. She calls the chief of police and tells him to have the officer go away. She ends up cursing at the officer, calling him an asshole. She refuses to cooperate. She refuses to stand at the edge of the car or even participate in the traffic stop in any way. She says she's going to go in the house. The whole thing unfolds over a 26-minute video, which I've edited down for the purposes of our discussion because you guys have probably seen most of it anyway. But if not, I'll leave the link to one of the news channels in the description so you can go watch it for yourself. It's pretty gross. But anyway, you get the gist of it. She thinks she's above the law. What are the chances you drive an extra half mile to your house when a cop is trying to pull you over and you don't get tased, beaten up, dragged out of the car, handcuffed, or worse? Rhetorical question number one. Rhetorical question number two. What are the chances that you're not in cuffs initially, but moreover, how long are you going to be able to walk freely around your home, due to officer safety, while telling the officers to piss off after you drove half a mile to your house while completely ignoring the fact that they were trying to pull you over? We all know the answers to those questions. So we pull up New York law. We don't need to look at speeding. She admitted she was going 55 and a 35. We all know what speeding is. But number two, there's a New York code called unlawful fleeing a police officer in a motor vehicle in the third degree. A person is guilty of unlawful fleeing a police officer in a motor vehicle in the third degree when, knowing that he or she has been directed to stop his or her motor vehicle by a uniformed police officer or a marked police vehicle by the activation of either the lights or the lights and siren of such vehicle, he or she thereafter attempts to flee such officer or such vehicle by driving at speeds which equal or exceed 25 miles per hour above the speed limit, or engaging in reckless driving as defined by section 1212 of the Vehicle and Traffic Law. Now, we don't know whether she sped up. That will be the dispositive issue here. If she continued to drive 55 and a 35, she's only going 20 over. If she sped up, say, to 60 because she truly didn't know that they were behind her, then she might be guilty of a misdemeanor here. But we don't have those facts and evidence. Most people, when they see blue lights and siren, they slow down, even if they're this lady. So more than likely, she's not guilty of this, but let's just keep that in the back of our mind. So we know for sure we have speeding by her own admission and by the officer's admission. Now, I want you to contrast the demeanor that she displays in this video with another video that I was able to find from the Law and Crime Network. Head on over to their channel and watch the whole interaction. But essentially, this is labeled as billionaire Larry Ellison being pulled over for speeding on an island that he owns. Okay, so you got a billionaire, Larry Ellison, purports to own this island. Now, again, I don't know if he actually owns it. I don't know anything about Larry Ellison. I'm just going based off the title. But he gets pulled over, and let's watch the difference in the way he conducts himself versus how she conducted herself.
Hi, how's it going, sir?
Sorry about that.
Hi, Officer Sang. My police. Hi, sorry, the reason I stopped you is you ran through the stop sign and you were kind of speeding there.
It was absolutely.
Any reason why in particular?
I was trying to get home for dinner with my kids, but there's no excuse. There's no good excuse.
Okay, cool. Can I see your driver's license, registration, and insurance?
So notice as soon as the officer gets up to the car, Larry Ellison says, "Sorry about that." And then the officer's like, "Well, the reason I stopped you is because you ran the stop sign and you were speeding a little bit. Is there any particular reason why?" And he starts to say, "Well, I was trying to get home for dinner with my kids," but he just kind of says, there is no excuse. He's polite. The cop goes back, runs the information, finishes the traffic stop, writes the ticket. It takes several minutes. He's not impatient. He's not saying blah, 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 blah. I'm too important for this. None of that. He ain't trying to leave. He's just nice, signs the ticket, sends the guy on his way, and everything's cool. Completely accountable. That's a guy who could buy and sell this DA 100 times over, and hey, he's a billionaire, but he understands that the law still applies to him, even though he has money. Now let's get back to her. Okay, so after it becomes apparent that the cop's not gonna just go away when she tells him to leave, Doorley calls the chief of police. We later learn that this is the second time that she's called, and then she calls him a third time while the officer's still on the scene. Again, I encourage you to try to find this video and watch the whole thing in its entirety. So if you haven't seen it all, you can see it all, but you can take my word for it, that's what happens. So recall that in the beginning of the encounter, the officer asked her if she saw his lights and heard the siren, and she said that she didn't because she was on the phone. She later makes the statement that she was talking to his chief. So she actually called his chief while the guy was trying to stop her and told the chief that she wasn't going to stop on Phillips Road, that she's going to go to her house and she's going to deal with the officer at her house. Now, is that enough to prove that she fled intentionally and it's a crime? Probably not, because again, you have to have that 25 mile per hour threshold in New York in order for it to be actually intentionally fleeing. But still, it's the mentality and the attitude that is the issue. She lied about not knowing that he was trying to pull her over. And then all her other statements that she makes thereafter are about her trying to use her office to get a hold of the chief of police and get out of this ticket. Now, that's going to come into play in a minute when we go through some other sections of the New York Code. So she refuses to comply with the officer's request that she participate in the traffic stop. She's told him to leave her alone multiple times. She's told the chief to tell him to leave her alone. And the chief decides that he wants an independent person out there, so he tells the officer to send a supervisor out. Supervisor comes out. Long story short, she sort of de-escalates a little bit while still being very condescending. The officer ultimately issues her a citation for speeding, tells her that he could have arrested her, and then goes on about his day, and everybody goes home or whatever. And then there's a huge fallout over this afterwards, okay? But for the most part, they all hung out in the garage, because that's what you do when you just don't feel like going back to the police car or listening to the cops. You just invite them in and be like, you know what, come in here. It's more convenient for you to do your stuff in here because I had a long day or whatever. And they always listen. So just try that next time, okay? Now let's look at the code for obstructing government operations in the second degree and see if this fits anything that we just saw. Obstructing government administration in the second degree. A person is guilty of obstructing governmental administration when such person intentionally obstructs, impairs, or perverts the administration of law or other governmental function, or prevents or attempts to prevent a public servant from performing an official function by means of intimidation, physical force, or interference. So let's see. She told him to go away. Okay, so she tried to get him to stop doing what he was doing and enforce the law. When she didn't get him to do that, she called his boss for a second time. Now again, you probably have it on the first time. Now I would make the argument these are three separate counts of her trying to do this, because she's tried unsuccessfully to get her way three different times. Okay, she calls while she's in the car, tell your guy to leave me alone. She calls while he's standing there, but then again she says, I'm going to call him again, and she calls him a third time during the encounter. She knows that she's got an officer doing an official function. She's using her office to try to intimidate him, and she's calling his boss. If it's not intimidation to take a person that you're arguing over his authority to do something to you and then call his boss in front of him, I don't know what intimidation is. That's clearly element for element consistent with what the law says. So there's a new misdemeanor. So we have traffic. We have potentially a misdemeanor in fleeing, but maybe not. Hard to prove. We for sure have obstructing governmental administration in the second degree, which is an arrestable misdemeanor. Well, what else could we have? New York has this handy little code called official misconduct. Let's take a look at what that says. A public servant is guilty of official misconduct when, with intent to obtain a benefit or deprive another person of a benefit, he commits an act relating to his office but constituting an unauthorized exercise of his official functions, knowing that such act is unauthorized. Or he knowingly refrains from performing a duty which is imposed upon him by law or is clearly inherent in the nature of his office. Well, looks like we're up to 3 potential misdemeanors and 1 traffic violation, because we got possibly fleeing, we got obstructing governmental administration, and now we have official misconduct. Let's walk through the elements. She is an elected public official. Okay, so that's a public servant. We know that. She's using her title immediately upon making contact with the officer as district attorney to try to get the benefit. The benefit is her not being prosecuted for the crime that she's just committed. Now, what happened after this? That we had this big fallout, the city council's calling for an investigation, everybody is stepping all over her for what she did, so she decides she's going to make a public apology. I want you guys to pay very, very close attention to the context and the words of her public apology, and then we're going to walk through it here in just a minute.
Last Monday, I failed you and the standards that I hold myself to, and for that, I am so sorry. What I did was wrong, no excuses. I take full responsibility for my actions. I fell short of the values I've held for my entire 33-year career. I didn't treat this officer with the respect that he deserved. All police officers deserve respect. I am truly and sincerely sorry. I had just come from work. I was dealing with 3 homicides that occurred over the weekend. I watched a video where an innocent cab driver was executed, and I was still reeling from a frightening medical concern that my husband received that afternoon. But we all had bad days and stress, and it was wrong for me to take it out on an officer who was simply doing his job. While I previously apologized to him, I will say it again. I'm sorry. Police already have a tough job, and that day I made this officer's job harder. To the community, I owe you full transparency. Here's what I'm doing to hold myself accountable. First, I already pled guilty to the speeding ticket, and I will willingly pay the fine. Next, I'm referring the entire matter to a district attorney from another county for review and will fully cooperate with that investigation. I'm going to self-report this incident to the grievance committee, and I will cooperate with their investigation. Finally, if one of my assistant district attorneys had acted this way, I would have disciplined them. So I'm disciplining myself. I will take ethics training to remind myself that professionalism matters. I've been humbled by my own stupidity, and I am fully to blame. I will make this right. I ask for your forgiveness.
Do y'all notice that about halfway through that, she pivoted to being a victim? She had a bad day, not because of something she went through. I mean, she had to look at pictures of somebody else's most horrific day of their life, right? Her husband went through something. She didn't go through anything other than being ancillary to her husband or sort of a by proxy. Even I shouldn't say that. She is a human being. I'm not suggesting that when your spouse goes through something that you don't feel it. The point is, all of this is about her. It's been about her from the beginning. It was about her in the traffic stop. And now the apology that is owed to you, the citizen, is also about her. In my opinion, this whole apology is insulting. And I want to walk through a couple things to give you some context as to how this might not have anything to do with accountability whatsoever. And she mentions that she's punishing herself. She already pled guilty to the traffic offense. So you're supposed to think that that's her punishing herself. She's already insinuated that she's not going to be prosecuting it because she's the one who would have to prosecute herself. So you might be tempted to say, well, she made a mistake and she's being accountable, but let me throw this at you for a second and see where this lands. In subsection 2 of the official misconduct statute that I just read you, let me reread it. Knowingly refrains from performing a duty which is imposed upon him by law or is clearly inherent in the nature of his office. In other words, she already admitted on camera that it's her job to prosecute herself. If she goes in there, she knows that she's guilty, she admitted that she's guilty, and she knows that the officer knows that she's guilty. Now again, obviously you still have due process and all that stuff, and she could have conflicted it out, but you get what I'm trying to say. Maybe there's not so much purity in this apology as initially she wanted to try to convey. Everyone watching this video knows that had she just stopped and told the officer who she was, he would have never written her a ticket. The intimidation has to be used in order to offset the bad decision. She's doing what they all do when the ego takes over. She's doubling down. But again, she has an argument, at least by pleading guilty, that she's trying to be accountable. Because she knows to just outright dismiss the case would be indisputably misconduct under the code, and because she wants to use it to leverage the accountability argument. Okay, so it is next day, James, and I was watching all the interviews associated with this prosecutor, and I already had the video edited and scheduled to upload, and then it occurred to me that I actually have a personal traffic stop, and it's embarrassing, but I was stopped by local police officers when I was a district attorney back in November of this past year. So at the time, I wasn't doing YouTube. I didn't have any contemplation of really reactivating my YouTube. I was thinking my way through it, and I thought, you know what? I had no idea I'd be putting my business out on YouTube in November. I had no idea this incident would give rise to me doing a video about it. I didn't know anything. All I knew was that I got stopped by a police officer, and I was conducting myself the way I would want to conduct myself if anybody in my family saw my video on YouTube. The reason you're seeing this now is because it's the next day, and I've kind of rethought the whole posting of this video, and I wanted to edit it to include my own traffic stop. It's about 2 minutes long. Now, I want to be clear. I had and still have a very good relationship with the law enforcement in my community. All of the guys that I worked with that worked closely with me called me if they thought they were borderline right or wrong. They called for my advice. They tried to get it right. I genuinely believe they did everything they possibly could to try to do things the right way, and I had a really good relationship. As a former officer, I knew how to talk to them. I knew where they were coming from. When I came at them, even if it was critical, it was to make them better and to make sure that they could do the right thing. And so I cherished the opportunity to be in a position of leadership to try to help those guys, and that's what I tried to do. But I just want to show you the difference between me. At the time, I was the traffic prosecutor, okay? And the only reason I was the traffic prosecutor is because I happen to have a commercial driver's license, and the federal government has strict regulations as it relates to people who get CDL tickets. And so a prosecutor has to make a decision about whether or not a charge needs to be prosecuted based on the masking laws that the FMCSA put out. So I was the traffic prosecutor because I had a CDL, and I had some other roles. Like I said, I was the defensive tactics and GST instructor and our firearms instructor as well. So I just want to make it clear that I had a good relationship with them, and I'm sure that has a lot to do with this. But had he written me a ticket, I would have accepted the ticket and I would have pled guilty to it, and I wouldn't have asked for a single concession, because I think that's what you're supposed to do. I think you should do it just because it's the right thing to do. So anyway, here's my traffic stop, and again, I want to be clear, I'm not asking for pats on the back. I'm not asking for anybody to think I'm a virtuous person. I'm just drawing a contrast between what I think a district attorney should do when they're stopped by the police and what this person did. So thanks for watching. Sorry to slow down the video.
I'm off.
Hey, buddy. Seriously, if you, I don't know how fast I was. You better calibrate your shit. No, I'm joking. If you need to write me, go ahead.
Hell no.
Are you sure? I'm really, man. If I was fucking up.
No.
As soon as I saw you, I was talking. I was with her about a juvenile. I told her that we had 4 to detain, and I was just messing with her, and I was like, oh shit. I said, I thought I'm getting pulled over by PD. I'll call you back as soon as I saw you move. I pulled over. Anyway, I'm sorry, buddy.
You're good, brother.
Yeah.
You're
all
good,
right.
girl. Check it out.
But I apologize for this. I'll do better.
Fair enough.
Be careful,
See you,
brother.
brother.
See
Hey,
you.
you have a good
All right, you too, buddy. See you. My closing argument in this case is that the extent to which this lady is condescending and out of touch with normal, everyday people is truly astonishing. And I say that in light of the fact that I know she's an elected official with apparently like 30-some years of government bureaucracy under her belt. She is a special breed of entitled. She says in her apology video that, you know, she fell short of the values she's had for 33 years. I don't believe for a second she fell short of anything. People don't fall short of an entire value system. They exist within the framework of their value system. And it's my opinion that she acted in conformity with a person who has been in a position to hold other people accountable, but who's never had anyone hold them accountable for several decades. She is right about one thing. She is completely to blame. But what she actually owes the community is not transparency, because where people like her fall so short of understanding the gravity of what's going on and where they show how out of touch they are, is they go out on TV and they say, well, I just want to give you transparency. Lady, we don't need transparency. We have body camera footage. There's no way that you can say something happened that we didn't see for ourselves. So nobody needs you to be transparent. We can all see what happened. What she actually owes the community is the ease of getting out of the way and not making the taxpayers spend resources and money to forcibly remove her from office, given that she's shown that her character is not aligned with the character of a person needed to do that job. Henry Kissinger has been largely credited with the quote, whatever must happen ultimately should happen immediately. So she needs to resign, let the community move on to someone who is up to the task. See, the biggest problem I have with this whole thing is this. I don't care about her giving the cop a hard time. What I have a problem with, and what I suspect all of you have a problem with, is that I bet every penny in my bank account that if this were anyone else, they'd have a mouthful of road rash and have levels of force exacted upon them that she can't even imagine. And what's worse is that she would stand in a courtroom and she would defend the charges against anyone else, and she would defend the level of force used against anyone else in her capacity as the elected district attorney. Her apology was fake. There was no authenticity to it whatsoever. She said she punished herself. Well, maybe I'm just out of the loop, but as far as I know, she hasn't charged herself with the 3 additional misdemeanors that I mentioned in my analysis. analysis. She hasn't turned herself in, and she hasn't tendered her resignation. So I still consider her unpunished. I sincerely hope that the conflict DA she calls in charges her and she gets impeached if she doesn't have enough sense to resign. And just one final comment about the relationship between power and money. Rewind back to Larry Ellison's video of him being stopped. People with money can still have their lives ruined by the law, and they know that. O.J. Simpson, Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, just to name a few. And that comment is not intended to give an opinion on the merits of the cases against them. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just making the observation that money alone is not sufficient to insulate a person from the law or the weight of the government. Just because you have money doesn't mean you have legal insulation. You have one more step if you're a person with money before you can get legal insulation, and that's that you have to give some of that extra money to someone with power. But people with power, specifically political power, have the ability to weaponize that power and the law against regular people, drown them in bureaucracy, and do everything they can to insulate themselves contemporaneously with having the law applied to them. And when you're above the law, well, money's easy to find. So regardless of whether you have power and you use it to get money, or you have money and you use it to buy power, you can still have both. The difference is that power doesn't need money to ruin people's lives. People with power can create havoc, and if they are greedy on top of that, they can become monsters. Money alone cannot single-handedly ruin a person's life. All money can do is associate with power to make that happen. And there's nothing good that comes from someone with the attitude and mentality of Sandra Doorley having political power. That's all for this one, guys. Please remember to like and subscribe and leave me a comment telling me what you think about Sandra Doorley. Please check out the other videos on the channel and give them a like and a comment as well. Until I see you again, take care, always film your interactions with the police, and keep your evidence to yourself.